going to amount to anything because the crimes of rent manipulation against major currencies, specifically the US dollar, are not new. And in fact, right now, the ANC government has got people who are on its advisory committee who have been found guilty, proven guilty of currency manipulations as early as 2001. So I don't think that we should be pacified or deceived by that rhetoric from the rostrum by the ANC Secretary General.
Well, it's a case of the pot calling the kettle black.
Well, it's more of that they are all, working together, scheming to effectively undermine the integrity and the value of the financial system of the country to ensure that the economy remains in a particular state where it can continue to be within their control. And this, I'm talking about a very elitist but totalitarian fascist group of people who always buy politicians. The question that I think the ANC would have done well to answer is, since 2001 with the Rent Commission, they had among, in their ranks of leadership, people like the former governor, Jill Marcus, who was deputy governor of the Reserve Bank then, who vowed to go and destroy a whistleblower, Kevin Wakeford. And of course, Kevin Wakeford was destroyed. And the ANC leadership did absolutely nothing, put in place no measures whatsoever to ensure that the crimes, or rather currency manipulation, is declared a crime carrying a minimum sentence period. And when you look at what has since happened in the US from that time to date, we have suffered continued incidences. In the last 15 years, there is evidence that the currency has continually been manipulated by these banks, this cartel of banks who have earned billions, if not trillions of rand from their crimes. And the CEOs who continue to earn huge bonuses, the currency traders who have themselves have continued to earn huge bonuses, yet the economy has suffered. It has been demonstrated that the economy has continually been on the decline. And as late as 2 days ago, the statistics general came out to say that our economy has shrunk by 0.2% in the last quarter. And most of this can be, inflation is rampant. The trade deficit is, continuing to widen and effectively undermine even that value of the currency. But when the currency weakens as it has, and when the currency is as volatile as our currency is, that is where this criminal cartel makes money. And yet the government, parliament, remains constrained, for reasons best known to them, from acting through legislation. Whereas in the US, they have got legislation that makes it not only a crime whereby the corporate institutions, the banks, are penalized through fines, hefty fines, but the actual executives face lengthy jail terms for this type of a crime because it is that serious. And therefore, I think everything else that has been spoken to date by this, elites, the ruling class, and specifically, the governing party, the ANC, it makes a mockery of a very serious situation that is damaging their economy.
Well, Tshepo, we can call them a cartel, we can call them a cabal. We know that the financial services sector is a very, very powerful sector, and particularly looking at our currency in particular, we know that it is free floating, it is extremely volatile, as you have mentioned. But again, taking advantage of the rand and the volatility. Clearly, this is tantamount to, the Secretary General spoke about corruption, but is this about corruption? Is this not even, one can actually use stronger terms, is this tantamount to treason as well, where we've seen an entire country suffer as a result of all this manipulation that is taking place?
Look, the evidence is clear. Currency manipulation, and specifically of the rand, is a economic sabotage. It's an act of economic sabotage. The fundamental weakness we have in our governance at the moment is that, notwithstanding the evidence and over the years, since we abolished the dual currency where we had the fin rand and the commercial rand, and when we allowed our currency to be free floating against all major currencies, we have done nothing. The legislation has not progressed one bit. So it has made it to be such a very profitable crime that there's going to be no stopping. And yet, all we hear is protests from the lawmakers, the legislators, from the governing party. That is not sufficient. That's really the point I'm making. It has been demonstrated about the harm that has accrued, the irreparable harm that has accrued to the economy of South Africa as a result of this crime. But it will not stop because it is exceedingly profitable. When you look at the slap on the wrist over the years, when you go back to the Rent Commission days in 2002, whereby it was a whitewash, they not only rewarded the commissioners who agreed that there was no problem, which was Judge Maybeck as well as Manda Rancho, they rewarded them with plum jobs in the very same companies that were guilty of the rent manipulation. And every one of them, Maria Ramos, who then 7 years ago, purported to apologize for ABSA's role in the currency manipulation, she herself has been rewarded. Her husband, who was the Minister of Finance for the longest of time, the man who should have himself been the guardian, the night watchman, he failed, but the reason he failed is because he has been handsomely rewarded for inaction, for doing nothing, for in fact being the bulwark to ensure that this crime continues. And these are the problems that we have. So I'm saying these people, there is no way that they can be able to do anything tangible to bring this crime to an end because it is profitable, it benefits their pockets. But what can we do as ordinary people, as civic society? Civil society needs to rise up. And I've suggested on other platforms, and I want to repeat it here now. The most effective remedy to bring to an end this scourge once and for all would be to pursue criminal charges against the banking executives and against the banks themselves in the United States courts, because the crime of currency manipulation was perpetuated on the people of South Africa using their currency, the rand, against a US dollar. And it is therefore the US courts find jurisdiction to prosecute these crimes in the US courts because the US dollar, wherever it is used anywhere else in the world, the US legal system, the criminal justice system of the United States will then find jurisdiction, because that's how serious they are about the sovereignty of the state and the sovereignty of their currency. And that is really, I think, that which can bring about a relief, because as far as this country is concerned, we don't even have a bill before Parliament. And even if we had a bill, it will not be signed for the longest of times. And there will be all manner of protests because of it is a very profitable crime. Therefore, civil society needs to very decisively ensure that they come together and litigate into the US courts, but to have these criminals, because that's what they are. We must call them by their rightful name. They are criminals, to be duly prosecuted in the US and be jailed, and the banks themselves be fined much more bigger amounts, as has been happening in recent years, that a number of banking executives for currency manipulation have been jailed in the US. The banks themselves have fines that are into billions of dollars. And that's really what we need, so that we ensure that this crime comes to a stop, so that the economy of South Africa can be able to grow. The integrity of the currency can therefore be preserved, and then there can be faith in our financial system to allow our economy to grow.
Tshepo, I'm going to put you on hold. I need to pay a few bills. We just we'll be back with you in a minute. If you just please just hold on.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park, as a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck area while you catch a glimpse of some wildlife sightings along the Crocodile River. The sounds of the African savanna will greet you whilst you enjoy your morning coffee. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Buckler's Africa Lodge is ideally situated only 6 kilometers from the Crocodile Bridge Gate in the Kruger National Park. Catering for all travelers with variety, we have 4 types of the finest rooms: superior rooms, deluxe suites, and 2-bedroomed family units. Each room is equipped with the finest amenities to make your stay unforgettable. Guests can choose between the self-catering option or book their accommodation with breakfast and dinner included. Buckler's Africa Lodge is your ideal location for the ultimate Kruger getaway experience. We specialize in exhilarating and educational game drives in Kruger, tailor-made to suit your family. Inquire about our various accommodation offerings and other activities. Visit www.tingana.co.za for more information. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Experience the pulse of Africa with us.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Sponsor an orphan and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, now we cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
The time is just gone 8:25. We continue with our discussion with Tshepo Kgadima, talking about the manipulation of the rand, and clearly this is of a major, major concern to South Africa, where we've seen the ANC Secretary General come out very, very strong, calling it corruption. But this is clearly tantamount to economic sabotage, as Tshepo has alluded to just before the break. Tshepo, just to continue, and also I think what is important to understand is how South Africans in general have been affected. Now we know about many South African workers that have to carry the burden of the manipulation of the rand. We've seen a lot of retrenchments. We've seen lower salaries, and at the end of the day, again looking at the the fine that was imposed on Standard Chartered Bank, 42 million rand. Yet we are talking of huge figures. We've seen the Competition Commission put the value of up to about 1 trillion rand as a result of the manipulated currency.
Oh, yes, indeed. Look, one of the weaknesses with the Competition Commission as it stands, the regime, is that they would levy a 10% fine on the turnover in that specific division. And in this case, it would have been the specific division of currency trading within Standard Chartered. And then they would then have had a limited scope in terms of the period in which they were involved. But also remember, Standard Chartered's operations in South Africa are very minimal. They do not have the large currency trading desk as they would do in Europe and in other jurisdictions, but they do have a presence here. So to that extent, you'll find that the Standard Chartered, they found it to be more convenient to confess, because they knew that their role in the whole criminality was, in monetary terms, was not as extensive. Well, 42 million rand, so that talks about that they are looking at about 420 million rand that they themselves made in turnover in currency trading. So it's not insignificant, but in the greater scheme of things, taking into account that there is at least 1 trillion rand in this crime that is involved, well, yes, it was convenient. The issue is this: the Competition Commission cannot be sufficient for the Competition Commission to stop there and not pursue the 28 others or the rest of this criminal cartel of banks. They have to go to the full extent of ensuring that at least 10% of that trillion rand is paid by these banks. But beyond that, as I say, to ensure that we never have to suffer again as a nation, because here you've got unrepentant, unrehabilitated criminals because of the profitability of the crime, where there is no consequence. There is no, well, you can commit this crime, a slap on the wrist, but you keep your bonus. For example, Standard Chartered has not then come out and say, well, the 42 million rand fine that they have paid, are they going to recoup that from the guilty employees within the bank? No, they haven't said that, because they understand that, well, they will continue because of the profitable element. So what I'm saying is that the damage that has been exerted on the economy of South Africa can quantify. Look at where the rand was 7 years ago, and then look at where the rand was 15 years ago, because the investigation is not over a period of 1 month or over 1 year. This investigation spans over 15 years. So the issue is that years and years of investigating, have they really uncovered the truest extent of the damage to the economy of this crime? I can assure you, no, not at all, because they've had a very limited, narrow scope of investigating this crime, whereas there had to have been a much more wider probe. So commissions of inquiry are not going to be the answer. We've seen with the Mybeck Commission, in the end, the terms of reference were so narrowly defined, effectively not even to have it on the wrist, but to pat them on the back for, having not been uncovered to the truest extent. And that is one of the flaws in the system as it's concerned. So I'm saying that South Africa, by and large, all the people who are affected, we now know what we are paying for the price of fuel per liter. We know exactly what, when we go into the supermarket, what we pay for food. We know full well that the core inflation, not what the Statistics South Africa publishes, which is around the 6% mark. Core inflation in this country, meaning for basic food and the necessities, is well over 15%. That is as a result, among others, of this problem. Investment has declined. The country continues to deindustrialize. We are not able to attract foreign direct investment or even domestic investment. If you are to invest in this economy, but you are going to import your capital equipment for your manufacturing purposes, the question is that, well, what am I buying that at? Because I'm buying it in a foreign currency using a very volatile, weakening rand. But the causes of the volatility and the weakening of the rand are actually as a result of manipulation. And as a result, then industries, businesses, no one is able to do anything because you don't know where the rent will be. If you are buying capital equipment today and you fix the price in dollars, the dollar is 18.35. Tomorrow, when you are now making payments, it's at 19.02. What does that mean? In rent terms, you have lost money. And if you are to sell anything to anyone in the world, and you agree that, okay, I'm exporting this particular item to you, today is at 19 rand 38 cents. And the very next day when the payment for that article comes in, the rent has somehow overnight went to 18 rand 10 cents. What does that mean to you? And because that is the volatility, which is as a direct result of the currency manipulation, that exchange rate, that should have been a warning, not only to the South African Reserve Bank, to the National Treasury, but to the presidency and to the big business. But big business is seemingly not acting because at the end of the day they are in cahoots with this banking cartel, with the criminal mafia. That is the extent which brings about effectively South Africa to remain in a state of arrested development. But what are the social ills that come out of that? We can talk about it. Crime is on the increase. The state no longer has got enough taxes. The state is borrowing, whereby today the per capita sovereign debt of this country, meaning if you were to take every man, woman, and child in this country, we each our portion of the debt, the sovereign debt of this country, is over 77,000 rand per person. That is a horror story because that means it's money that has been diverted. This country right now, as a result of all of these things, the knock-on effect on the economy has resulted whereby the state now shores up its finances in terms of fiscal spending by borrowing more money, but that money doesn't even come into the economy. We are now borrowing on a daily basis 1,051 million rand every single day. That is the amount of money that Treasury today, at the end of today, will have had to go and borrow to go and pay, service the debt that was accrued during those years when this crime of currency manipulation was starting to manifest. And the people who are supposed to be, and I'm putting a blame at the door of the likes of Trevor Manuel and the entire banking cartel that he effectively worked with over many, many years, more than 20 years.
Well, Tshepo, we would love to engage a lot more. I'm sure there's just so much more you can actually bring to this discussion, but unfortunately, time is run out. But for now, we thank you. We do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us this morning right here on Salam Media.
Thank you very much.
Tshepo Kgadima with us, economic and energy analysts. And with it, we're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by marketing coordinator at the Daily Maverick, co-founder of Empower Her, Iman Musa.